Hello everyone and welcome to another BIX Tech webinar. I'm Bianca and today we're joined by Charles, the founder of Trusted Advisor Associates. Well, today we're here to discuss a crucial topic, which is how to trust people in an increasingly digital world. Charles, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, to start our conversation, I think trust is essential in any relationship, professional or personal. And we know technology is advancing quickly. And with that, we are connected more than ever through digital platforms, which brings us new challenges in terms of trust. So for example, how can I trust emails from unknown senders? How can we sure that the content we are consuming is trustworthy? So I want to ask you, what are some of the challenges you see businesses, happening with them that you think it creates a problem in such a virtual space? What are the challenges you face as a company, for example?
Yeah, okay, it's a great topic and a big one. I think the biggest challenge, let's put it this way, when you think about trust, there's lots of different models of trust. I have some, other people have other models. All of them have two parts. Part of trust is rational, logical, cognitive, things like credibility and reliability. You can measure them, you can get certifications, you can do track records, you can do statistics. That's an important part of trust, competency, reliability, that kind of thing. The other part of trust is more emotional, non-cognitive, more feelings related, and that's important too. And in general, I'll make a big generalization here in business, and in particularly in the last 20 years in business, we have all tended to put much more emphasis on the rational, on the first part. And when we talk about digitization and living in a digital world, the iPhone is only 20 years old, the internet's only 30, something like that. And we now got artificial intelligence, so we focus very much on getting really good at the analytical, rational, data-driven, cognitive side, and not so much on the emotional side. And this shows up in various applications like communications, whether it's interpersonal communications or written digital communications. And it shows up in sales as another interesting example. There are challenges in each of those. Just one other piece of background. I don't mean to be saying that we've gotten ahead in the rational side of things. The fact is, we are all human beings. We're the result of eons of evolution. And human beings are actually pretty good at the emotional side without any education or training. We're all pretty good at it. So it's not like we have to relearn it. We sort of have to trust the instincts that are already built into us in some way. So that's an overview: rational, emotional, and then applies in communications and sales.
Great. I totally understand. Taking what you have said about communication and given what I have mentioned, how can we sure that this communication on platforms like Zoom, Google Meeting, through emails, is seen as trustworthy? What are some of the steps businesses can take to build trust from the very beginning?
Yeah, this one's actually sort of easy. I'll use Zoom as a generic term for all those kinds of communications. How do we, behave and interact on a Zoom call? Well, one real simple advice: don't turn off your camera. Have the courage to be on camera. I give a lot of seminars and webinars, and it's amazing. In some groups, half the people, they're off camera. We're built so that to be able to see somebody visually, to hear somebody, those are our primary tools. When you're on, when you're remote on a Zoom, you don't have smell, you don't have touch. I'm forgetting the fifth sense, but you do at least have visual and auditory. And if you cut off one of them, if you're off camera, you just gave up 50% of your ability to connect to another human being. So don't do that. Get on camera. It doesn't matter if you're, in your sweatpants, you're having a cup of coffee, the dog is in the background, the cat is walking on the keyboard. That's all good. I tell people, don't use digital automated backgrounds. If you have a background of the Golden Gate Bridge, we know you're not in San Francisco in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Don't do that. Show us the dog, show us the cat, show us the background, and it's more real. You realize you're talking to a real person. The other thing I would say is, because it is a limited medium, it's true. It's not 3D, it's 2D. But you can do certain things. Modulate your voice much more up and down. Use the vocal capabilities that you have. You can even sometimes lean in, to emphasize a point. We all respond to those kinds of cues. And maybe, I remember when I took training years ago for public speaking, and they said, make big gestures. 2,000 people are watching you. You want to make sure that the people in the back row feel like you're speaking to them. And you do that by exaggerating certain movements. You may feel that you're overacting, but no, you're not. From the person in the back row, it makes you real. And I think the same thing applies to Zoom communications. Repetition is not a bad thing. Talking slowly is a good thing. And also, periodically stop and engage in some interaction with people. Zoom tends to make you feel like, you're preaching, you're talking, and they're listening. But if you have interactive, ask some questions, invite participation. So you really do get some two-way dialogue going. And those, I think, are fairly simple things we can all do. We can all do them starting today.
Truly.
And they really help the communication.
What a great answer. I think about body language, and you get to see the other person, how it's moving, That's very interesting. Yes, just show up, really show up to people.
Yeah, exactly.
You have mentioned to about automation.
Yeah.
When we think about trust, automation comes to mind as well, because many companies use automated tools to talk with the clients.
Yeah.
So how can we still use automated tools in our interactions as robots and people? And still enhance trust with the clients,
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a little bit more difficult. And again, I go back to that distinction between trust is partly rational and partly emotional. We've gotten very good at perfecting all the digital analytical tools so that we can generate responses. We know who we're talking to. The problem is, we should use all those analytical capabilities to refine our sense of who we're talking to. For example, let's talk about customer service bots. I'll give you a small example. I recently booked a flight on a budget airline. I don't like using them, but and then it turns out I had to cancel the flight. Or no, they canceled it. They changed their schedule. They canceled it. All right, so I want to get a refund. So it takes me a while on the website. How do I find to get a refund? Finally, they give me a phone number. I call up, and they have a bot, an automated bot, and it was very effective. It went through like 6 questions. Who are you? Where were you going? What was the date? How much? What credit card? Boom, 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 boom. And then it says, okay, we'll transfer you to a real person to finalize the transaction. The hold will be 45 minutes. Now, the bot saved, 2 minutes. It was very efficient. But now I got to wait 45 minutes to finalize it. So the technology got way ahead of the process. So one point is, don't, digitized communications are not the only thing. They have to fit in an overall system. And if the overall system is not consistent with the capabilities that you've come up with, you're going to look stupid. It's a bad use of it. I think, I had another thought. It's sort of the last mile. They talk in telecommunications about wiring networks, and the last mile, to the consumer is very different than all the long haul networks. And this is true too. If we get really good at analyzing and honing in on all the communications, but if the delivery, the final communication to the customer is done like a bot, it's terrible. A great example is we all get emails. And you remember Nigerian princes offering to give you millions of dollars. We all know how to spot those things. And in the old days, we fell for things like automated voice messages. Well, we've learned all that, and we'll learn the spoofs and the crazy things that are out there now. Most of us, I think, are pretty good at figuring out if you get an email from, it looks like, Chase Manhattan Bank or something official, and it says, "Oh, you just won the lottery." Most of us know if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true. And although today's challenges are more and more difficult to spot, I'm confident that within a few years, we'll all incorporate those things too. We'll all know how to recognize a fake video. I guess the big lesson is whatever interaction you're going to have with a customer, make sure that the final contact is done in a very human way. Don't trust artificial intelligence to create a dialogue. I saw an interesting piece the other day from a fiction writer. He said, "Here's an example of a story that I wrote, and here's an example of an artificial intelligence generated story that I asked it to do in my style, same plot, same everything. See if you can tell the difference." Yes, you can immediately tell the difference.
Yes.
It's not hard to say why, you just feel it. So I guess the big thing is don't over rely on technology to make that final mile of communications. That's got to be personal.
Truly. I think you mentioned to wait in a queue. I think to wait in a queue virtually is even worse.
Yeah,
Like I'm waiting to sit down here and I have to wait for someone else.
that's right.
Yeah, that that is really, really bad. Anyway, now I want you to talk a little bit about the differences between micro-targeting and personalization in sales.
Yeah, good.
Can we use these two strategies to talk with clients? And as a company, how can we use these strategies without making the customers feeling like this is intrusive? Like this company is intrusive, it's talking to me, How can we use that?
Yeah, again, same topic, rational, emotional. We've gotten so good now at using some of these technological tools that we can micro-target, we can refine our customer profiles. There's a thing called ICP, Ideal Client Profile, Ideal Customer Profile. In the old days, we called that segmentation, and we've gotten much better at it. We can do not only geographic and titles, but we can segment by psychographics, demographics, all kinds of things. So you can really hone in on exactly what kind of target customer you want. The problem comes, again, in the last mile. If you communicate to people in ways that are all about your product, they're going to feel like a target that you've been targeting. Nobody wants to feel like a target. You have to change the language at the last part of it and make it human. I get all the time, many times a day, I'm sure you do too, and everybody listening here does too. We get messages on LinkedIn or messages from email, messages from all kinds of places that say, "Wow, we've got this great new product, and you'd be just perfect for it, and it does this, it does that, it does it. Click here to set up a meeting." Well, I never answer those, and probably you don't either, because they may have gotten it right. They may have targeted me because I wrote a book, or because I'm a consultant, or because I live in Florida. They got all that right, but I don't want to be like a target. It's clearly, it's automated. It's just obvious. It's just like a Nigerian prince giving me millions of dollars. No, what you have to do is to say, we found you, and I really think this might make sense because I notice on your profile you do this and you do that, and if I'd love to chat with you more if it makes sense. Find something that is personal, and don't automate that last bit. Find something. Get a human being involved who's capable of saying things like, "Gee, I noticed you live in Minneapolis. There was a big storm there last night. Did you get wet?" Or I noticed you have a picture of your dog on your profile. I have a schnauzer also. Something you're dealing with a real human being that actually looked at your profile. Otherwise, one of the interesting things they have in grocery stores, they have Bluetooth capability. If they've targeted you within the store and you're walking by a certain place in the aisle and the family's having a baby, when you walk by the baby products aisle, it'll ding your phone because you're a likely target. I don't want to be dinged because I'm a target. That's so impersonal. It's rude. It's offensive. And, the best companies do this. It's stupid. Don't do that. If you're going to, targeting is fine. Micro-targeting is fine. Just don't use that technology for the last mile. Make it human. If that makes sense.
Yes, wonderful. Well, As we advance now to wrap it up our conversation, as technology is evolving,
Yes.
we can be often worried about data availability and transparency in sales too. So what I want to ask you, what is your top recommendation? What is on top of your list when it comes to an advice for companies looking to enhance their trust with
Okay.
customers?
Yeah. Well, it probably, I'm going to repeat myself. I think that my analogy of the last mile is a simple thing to remember and very, very important. Don't confuse all your back end analysis, whether it's sales or communications, with the final step of communication. It's great to be technology driven, great to be data driven, great to be analytical for all your activities. But when you finally get to the point of communicating with a customer, that's got to feel human. It's got to take into account all the analysis that you did, all the technology capabilities, but you better make the customer feel like the human being who actually cares a little bit. That would be my advice.
Okay. So it could be like an extension of what would be an in-person meeting, for example, when it comes to purchase space.
Yes, I think so. And one of the best things we do in in-person meetings, people can feel that we're listening to them. In general, when people ask me about trust, they say, what's the biggest single thing you can do for trust? And I say, listen, pay attention to the person in front of you. Clear your head of all your theories and hypotheses and objectives and just listen. Pay attention and listen to the person, because all of us on that emotional fundamental level, we like to be paid attention to. We like to be noticed. We like to be acknowledged. We like to be respected. And it's not that hard to give respect. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to prove you're smart. All you have to do is pay attention. It results in the other people paying attention to us because they want to reciprocate. So, make it human. How do you make it human? The biggest single thing, listen to them. And you try and do that on a Zoom call. You try and do that in your communications, just as you would, as you said, in an in-person meeting.
Yes. Well, Charles, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. It was a wonderful conversation, I might say. We had a great time.
Yes.
To everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe to BIX Tech. Say it down below. You can comment if you have a question for us too. And don't forget to follow BIX Tech on other social medias. Thank you so much and see you next time.